Hello and welcome. If you've been keeping an eye on Vancouver's real estate market, you know it has been an absolutely wild ride. But it feels like the ground is finally shifting. So today, we're going to dig in and explore whether 2026 could be the year the balance of power finally tips in your favor.
So yeah, let's just ask the big question right up front. After all these years of feeling completely locked out, is 2026 the moment you've been waiting for? Is this the year to get into the Vancouver housing market? Well, the data is suggesting we're in for a very, very different landscape than what we've seen in a long, long time. But, before we can really understand where we're going, we have to remember where we've been. So let's just take a quick look back at that absolutely extreme seller's market that pretty much defined the last few years.
Does this sound at all familiar? That completely frenzied market of 2021 and 2022? It was all about record high prices, these crazy bidding wars that just drove prices even higher, and this immense pressure on buyers to make life-altering decisions in like a matter of hours, often without basic conditions like an inspection. It was tough, and that's putting it mildly.
Okay, but here's the thing. That era is over. We are now smack in the middle of a pretty significant market correction, and the whole point of this explainer is to understand how and why that power is shifting away from the sellers and, you guessed it, back towards the buyers.
So to really get this shift, we need to talk about a key term, a balanced market. Just think of it as the sweet spot, right? It's measured by this thing called the sales to active listings ratio. And what that means is, if somewhere between 12 and 20% of the homes on the market sell each month, it tells us that supply and demand are basically in equilibrium. Neither buyers nor sellers really have the upper hand.
And check this out. This is the magic number right now, 14.2%. This one little data point is our first piece of hard evidence that intense, crazy seller's market, it's a thing of the past. We are squarely in that balanced territory, and folks, that is an absolute game changer for buyers.
And of course, this balance is hitting prices directly. As you can see right here from the year-over-year data, price adjustments are happening all over the place. Detached homes are down 4.3%, but look at condominiums. They're down 5.1%. That part of the market is really feeling the pressure, probably because those higher interest rates have pushed some investors to the sidelines.
And here is the other side of that coin. It's not just about sales slowing down, it's also about supply going up. With active listings at their highest level in almost 10 years, you, the buyer, have something you haven't had for a very, very long time: choice. And with choice comes negotiating power. Okay, so that's the picture right now. But what does this mean for the future? Let's move on and see what the major Canadian real estate and financial institutions are actually forecasting for the really crucial numbers in 2026. So if you look at this table, you can see forecasts from all the key players, and honestly, a pretty clear consensus is emerging. The BC Real Estate Association, CREA, the major banks, they're all pointing towards stabilization, not another boom. They see sales picking up a little bit after this correction, but the key insight for us here in BC is that while the national picture is stabilizing, our province is actually expected to see some of the steepest adjustments before we find that new balance.
Now let's talk about the one factor that, let's be honest, matters most to your monthly budget: interest rates. This slide just perfectly illustrates the relief that's forecasted for borrowers. The Bank of Canada's policy rate, which peaked up at 5%, is now projected to fall all the way down to 2.25% by 2026. That is a massive, massive shift with huge implications for affordability.
So what does that policy rate actually mean for you when you go to the bank? Well, it translates to this. The forecast for 5-year fixed mortgage rates in 2026 is expected to be somewhere in the 3.5 to 4% range. Now look, it's not the historic lows we saw during the pandemic, but it is a really significant improvement in affordability compared to those 5+% rates we saw at the peak.
But hey, it's not just about interest rates, right? There are a bunch of other major forces at play here. Some of them are creating opportunity, others are creating a bit of uncertainty. So let's take a look at these wildcard factors that are shaping the 2026 market.
And this is a really big one. This is a huge policy shift. The federal government has seriously reduced its immigration targets, from a peak of 500,000 permanent residents down to 380,000 for 2026. This drop in population growth is going to directly impact housing demand, especially in the rental market and the entry-level condo market. It just means less competition.
We also have to think about these other powerful forces.
First, you've got ongoing trade tensions, which creates economic uncertainty, and that can make buyers a little hesitant. Second, construction costs are still really high, and that's limiting new supply, which kind of creates a floor for how far prices can actually fall. And finally, there's a huge wave of mortgages that were taken out at those ultra-low pandemic rates that are all coming up for renewal at higher rates. This could actually force some homeowners to sell, adding even more properties to the market.
So after looking at all that data and all those different forces, what does it all actually mean for you? Well, this brings us to what I think is the most important part of this whole thing, the actionable playbook for navigating this new market.
This is what's in it for you. More choice means less pressure. Less competition means you can actually negotiate. And this is critical. It means you can make offers with conditions for things like financing and home inspections. These are protections that were nearly impossible to include just a few years ago. This is a fundamental return of power to you, the buyer. And for you first-time buyers out there, the opportunity is even greater. Let's just quickly walk through this powerful toolkit. First, you can save for your down payment completely tax-free using the new First Home Savings Account, or FHSA. Next, you can borrow from your own RRSP with the Home Buyers Plan. Here in BC, you can also potentially save up to $8,000 by avoiding the property transfer tax. And finally, new rules allow for a 30-year amortization on insured mortgages, which can seriously lower your monthly payments. These are concrete tools to make that first home way more affordable.
You know, in the middle of all this talk about timing and numbers and percentages, I think this quote from the source material offers a really crucial bit of perspective. Trying to perfectly time the bottom of the market, it's a fool's errand, really. If this is a home you plan to live in for the long haul, finding the right property for you and your family is so much more important than trying to squeeze out a few extra percentage points on the price.
Okay, so let's just do a quick recap of what we've covered. The most crucial point is that the market is stabilizing after a big correction. Interest rates have come down, providing some serious relief. A mix of high inventory and shifting immigration policy has given you, the buyer, leverage you haven't seen in years. And for anyone entering the market for the first time, there are some pretty substantial savings programs available to you.
Which really just leaves us with this one final thought. The data is clear. The Vancouver housing market is presenting a window of opportunity that is unlike anything we have seen in nearly a decade. So the question is no longer just if there will be an opportunity, but rather, are you ready for it?